morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at the top 20 cards from Astral Radiance. The set list has been confirmed, scans are even available. That means it's time to go and have a little bit of a look. And I'll be honest with you, I was not expecting much. When I started going through the set list, I got a little disappointed. There just weren't that many good cards out there. I was starting to think this would be a difficult to put together list because there weren't enough cards to put on it, and then I kept going, and it turns out it's a difficult to put together list because there are a lot of very good cards on this list. I mean, if we have a look at the almost rounds, the ones that almost made it, Dialga VSTAR. It's got a VSTAR power that gives you an extra turn. That's great. Didn't put it on the list. Jubilee Village, really nice stadium. Lets either player shuffle a hand into their deck and draw 5 cards at the cost of ending their turn. Brilliant in control decks. Great for when you've got nothing going on. Couldn't find a space on this list. Hoot Hoot, which is basically just a brilliant counter to stuff that's going to try and get rid of your energy. Yeah, could not find space for that on the list. Although, to be fair, just mentioning it here does give me an excuse to show the Hyganasuke artwork, so it's not the end of the world. Weirdia V, I really like because it's got that ability that moves energy over to it as you go to the active, and then you can deal damage depending on how much energy is on there. Couldn't find space for that, although I do think it's going to be a tech that sees a bunch of play. And then Radiant Heatran, the only one of the Radiant Pokemon that didn't make its way onto the list. I actually really like it in Fire decks. 70 damage for each damage counter on it is really quite high. I do think it's a pretty gosh darn good card, but I just could not find space for it on the list. What did make it? In at number 20, Super Effective Glasses. It's an item card, it's a tool card, and when you attach it to one of your Pokemon, if you're hitting for weakness, you apply it as ×3 weakness rather than ×2. This is going to take cards that weren't viable and then make them viable, because all of a sudden you got 50% extra damage. Those single prize Pokemon that weren't quite good enough become easily good enough. And there are going to be a lot of players that play around with this. In at number 19, we've got Miltank, or as I like to call it, Better Altaria. It's got that ability that prevents all damage done to it by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. It's great. And yeah, we've all been using Altaria up to now, but the thing is that Altaria is a Stage 1 Pokemon. This is a basic. So this is basically Altaria, but, you know, 1 turn earlier, which, for the record, makes a huge difference. So, yeah, this is going to be one that people like and play around with quite a bit. In at number 18, we've got REGI-STUFE. Now, I call it REGI-STUFE because it really is a deck. This stuff doesn't, except for maybe Regidrago, doesn't really exist on its own. So you've got Regigigas with the ability Ancient Wisdom, and if you've got a Regirock, Registeel, Regice, Regieleki, and Regidrago in play, and yes, that does mean that all 6 of your spots will be taken up by the 6 Regis, you can attach 3 energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. Important to note, it says energy, it does not say basic energy, so yes, you can get your special energy here. Then it's got an attack which does 300 damage to a Pokemon VMAX, and you are cooking. Regidrago, when it's in the active, lets you draw until you've got 4 cards in your hand. It's the only one that will really work in other decks, although to be fair, some of the others might, and this has a high retreat cost, which is annoying. Regieleki, you can discard 2 lightning energy to do 120 to one of your opponent's bench, which is quite nice. Regice, you do 100 damage, and if the defending Pokemon is a Pokemon V, they can't attack next turn, and that does include VMAX, and it does include V-Star. And Regirock just does 140, but remember, Regirock hits for a really nice weakness. And what we've got here is just a really nice suite of cards that could be really good, and I love them. In at 17, we've got GUTSY Pickaxe, an item card, and this is really good in speed decks, and it's also that fighting energy acceleration we've wanted for a while. Look at the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy, attach it to one of your bench Pokemon. If it's not, just put it in your hand. So worst case scenario, this is a draw 1, and speed decks love item draw. And it's weak draw, but it's still item draw. But in fighting decks, this could be the thing that means you actually get enough energy on the field, and fighting decks desperately need it. In at number 16, we've got Cancelling Cologne. It's an item card that just turns off your opponent's active Pokemon's abilities until the end of their next turn. One thing that's important, and we saw this in the FAQ that I showed you the other day, it is the active spot that it is targeting, not any individual Pokemon. So if the active Pokemon changes, the new active Pokemon won't have any abilities. That is pretty gosh darned important. It's about the only good way we've got to turn off abilities of single prize Pokemon, at least having whatever you want active, and quite frankly, it is going to see some play. In at number 15, we've got Arena. Search for a water Pokemon, add an item card, put them into your hand. And we know this is going to be good, partly because water decks over in Japan are already playing it, and partly because this is Water Korrina, and Korrina saw a bunch of play and was awesome. If you're playing a water deck, get the Pokemon you want and any item, this is going to see a whole bunch of play. Speaking of water cards that are already seeing play over in Japan, in at number 14, we've got STARMIE V. I like STARMIE V, and not just because STARMIE in French is Staros, it's the ability Energy Spiral. 50 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So this does one of two things. Either it punishes your opponent for attaching energy, or it makes your opponent not attach energy that they otherwise would, so you can't punish them, and either way you're winning with this. Because it's only 2 energy, stuff like Melanie makes it super easy to get the energy on and go smashing. This is a really, really good tech in water decks. Expect to see a bunch of it. In at number 13, we've got Silene. Now, if you're looking for recovery, Silene's got your back. Flip 2 coins, and for each heads, you can put a card from your discard pile on top of your deck. But it recovers anything. Stuff like item cards, which is really, really difficult to actually recover. Silene will get them back. That's a very big deal. Control decks are going to like this more than others, but any deck can use this for a bit of recovery, and that is awesome. Now, in at number 12, we've got DARIKRAI VSTAR, and I'm going to be honest with you right off the bat, this feels weird putting this so low. The fact that DARIKRAI didn't even make the top 10 really surprises me, but the fact is there's 2 other V-Stars in this set I like more, and we've had big tournaments in Japan, and DARIKRAI did not show up that strongly. For 2 energy, you do 30 damage, plus 30 more for each darkness energy attached to all of your Pokemon. But Dark Patch has been reprinted, and we've got both Galarian Moltres and Galarian Moltres V. It is easy to get darkness energy onto the field to do a bunch of damage with this, and this can add up very, very quickly. Then you've got the V-Star power, the ability Star Abyss, lets you put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand. That's big! I think DARIKRAI is going to end up being a top deck, and there's a very good chance I'm putting it way too low, and I'm alright with that. We'll see if it proves me wrong. In at number 11, we've got Trekking Shoes. Now, Trekking Shoes is a weird one, because it doesn't look that great on the face of it, but it's already seeing a bunch of play in Japan, and it's only going to see more and more play as time goes by. Look at the top card of your deck, and you got a choice. You either put it into your hand, or you discard it and put the next card into your hand. It's item-based draw. We talked a minute ago about item-based draw, how rare it is. Well, this is better than something like GUTSY Pickaxe if you're just looking for the draw. In speed decks, or any decks that can afford to play it, it's just great. You're going to see a lot of this. Now, in at number 10, we've got Mighty Ina, and the deal with Mighty Ina is really simple. It is a phenomenal Mew counter, and not much else. If your opponent's got a VMAX in play, you can attack for free. It's free energy, but you reduce it by 3 with the ability if there's a VMAX in play. And then you deal 160, which just so happens to be the perfect amount of damage to KO a Mew VMAX. And it really is as simple as that. It's perfect. Especially good in Zoroark decks that can switch into it nice and easily, but it's a phenomenal counter for Mew, or really any other Darkness Weak VMAX, but Mew is the main one. In at number 9, I'm cheating, but I'm only cheating once in this entire video, and that is a lot less than normal. We've got Gapejaw Bog and Temple of Sinnoh. Both good stadiums, both drawn by Kato, both going to see a bunch of play. Gapejaw Bog says that whenever a player puts a basic Pokemon from the hand onto the bench, put 2 damage counters on them. And this can be used either to damage your own Pokemon to activate extra damage, etc. Or it can be used to hurt your opponent's Pokemon as they get benched. Either way, it's a good card that's going to see play. Temple of Sinnoh, that is the one that turns all special energy into one single colourless energy. Remember, when it says colourless energy, it means 1, so any that would usually provide 2 colourless still only provide 1 colourless. And it just turns them all off. The thing is, double turbo energy goes down to 1 energy, that's a big deal, although curiously it will also stop it reducing damage by 20. Fusion Strike energy that all of those Fusion Strike decks rely on, all of a sudden only provides colourless energy. It can really, really hurt some decks. In at number 8, we've got Samurott VSTAR, and a lot of you can watch this next minute or 2 of the video and say, hang on a second, WotC, that doesn't really explain why you put it so far above Darkrai. Because actually, Samurott did not show up in Japan kind of like Darkrai. I just think Samurott is going to be the better deck in the long run. 2 energy, 110 damage, but if your opponent's active already has any damage on it, you deal 220. But the fact of the matter is, you got Dark Patch, which will accelerate that second energy super easily, and 220 is the perfect amount of damage to KO the vast majority of Pokemon V. So what we've got here is a single evolution, super easy to get the energy on Pokemon that can one-hit KO pretty much any Pokemon V. This is extremely fast, extremely consistent, and will smash Pokemon V, and that's basically your answer. The V-Star power being an ability that drops 4 damage counters is fine. Helps if you're really struggling to get damage on the active. Maybe finishes off a KO. Really here, it's all about the attack. Maybe Darkrai ends up being way better than Samurott and this list ends up looking a bit silly. Right now, I feel good about this. In at number 7, we've got Radiant Hawlucha. Very much the second best of the Radiant Pokemon. It is not the best, it's not challenging for it, but it is really good. It's got an ability that means you do 30 more to your opponent's active Pokemon V Max. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, especially the card reveal videos, you'll notice that I regularly say, and then you add Hawlucha and you get the key KO. There are so many Pokemon that are just put over the top using this to do that extra 30 damage. It sees a bunch of play. It's really good. It helps you hit the numbers. In at number 6, we've got Gardenia's Vigor. Now, this is pretty much Grass Welder. It's not quite as good as Welder, but then again, Welder was one of the best supporter cards you've ever seen. Gardenia's Vigor is a little bit worse, I think at least, but it's still really good and it's going to make Grass Pokemon way better. Draw 2 cards, and if you drew any cards, attach up to 2 grass from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, as opposed to Welder where you attach 2 energy and if you attach any you draw 3 cards. It's attaching 2 extra energy, and general rule, right, if your supporter's attaching 2 extra energy and letting you draw cards, that's usually a very, very good sign. Put simply, Gardenia's Vigor makes every grass Pokemon better. In at number 5, we've got another new supporter card. It's Grant. And here's the thing. Grant's general thing is, hey, you're fighting Pokemon, do 30 more damage this turn. That's not why anybody likes Grant. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good. It is not putting it this high up on the list. The thing about Grant is, if you want to empty out your hand, and there are plenty of reasons to empty out your hand, whether it's drawing more cards or just, getting rid of stuff to play from the discard or whatever, Grant is so good. Because if it's in your discard pile, you can discard any 2 cards that aren't Grant from your hand and bring Grant back. And you can do that multiple times a turn. Discard 2 cards from your hand, bring Grant back, Ultra Ball it away to grab a basic Pokemon, and then get rid of another 2 cards from your hand to grab Grant back again. And what you're doing here is just emptying your hand. And whether it's playing from the discard pile, whether it's a Wormadam deck that really wants to have multiple Pokemon in the discard, whether you are trying to get your hand empty so you can draw extra cards, whatever it might be, This is just brilliant. Yeah, the extra 30 damage is nice, but the reason this is so good is because when it comes to emptying your hand, this is nuts. In at number 4, we've got Dark Patch, and I mentioned it a couple times already, and here's the thing. Generally speaking, I don't like putting reprints on my top 20 list because it feels a bit lazy. But Dark Patch was printed once, a decade ago, and it's now back. This is a big deal and it does deserve to be on the list. Attach a Darkness energy from your discard to one of your bench Darkness Pokemon. I've already mentioned it in both the Darkness Pokemon I've mentioned so far. This is all but a guaranteed 4 of in every Darkness deck, unless you're only using single energy attacks, I suppose. This is very big. It's going to see a huge amount of play. This is going to be great. In at number 3, and to be clear, right, this is where we draw a line. I think any of the top 3 could easily be number 1. I feel good about my list of 1, 2, and 3, but you could mix and match them around and I wouldn't be terribly offended. So in at number 3, we've got Palkia VSTAR. Palkia VSTAR is just phenomenal. It's the best deck in Astral Radiance. It is the best new attacker, the best new deck, call it what you will. And if you wanted to put this number 1 on your list, I wouldn't be upset. I just think the top 2 cards are going to be seen in a much wider variety of decks, and that to me gives them the edge. And what we've got from Palkia is that you deal 60 damage for just 2 energy, and bearing in mind Melanie will pay that second energy super easily, and then you deal 20 more for each bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent's. Well, if you've got 5 bench Pokemon, that's 160 before you've even gotten going. If your opponent's got 3 bench Pokemon, you're doing 220, there's a KO on basically any Pokemon V. And if you then add a choice band, you can do that when your opponent only has 2 bench Pokemon. Just like Samurott, this can be just running through Pokemon V super easily. If your opponent fills up their bench, however, then you're hitting 260, 290 with a choice band, and it's a whole different ballpark. Plus, you've got the ability Star Portal. Your V-Star power lets you attach free water energy from your discard pile to your water Pokemon in any way that you like. And yeah, this one is good. It won seniors in that huge tournament in Japan recently. It started to make other cards good as counters to it. You are going to see a lot of this over the next few months. In at number 2, we've got Radiant Greninja, another new water Pokemon. And the thing here is, this is going to be in a bazillion decks. It's the best Radiant Pokemon. And remember, Radiant Pokemon are limited to 1 of any type per deck. The ability Concealed Cards lets you discard an energy card to draw 2 cards. And that's what's great about this. It's basic Pokemon draw power. We don't see much basic Pokemon draw power, especially single prize. So yeah, this is a bit of a big deal. Or if you are playing Water Energy, free energy, discard 2 of them, 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, potentially taking multiple KOs. Yeah. Like, everything about this card is just great. But in at number 1, it's Roxanne. And I know some people want to put Palkia number 1, some people might want to put Radiant Greninja number 1. As far as I'm concerned, it's got to be Roxanne. Over the next couple of years, Roxanne is going to be a staple in almost every deck. You are going to see a ridiculous amount of it. Because if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, you both shuffle your hand into your deck, you draw 6, your opponent draws 2. Simple as that. We don't have that many great comeback cards at the moment. They're just not in the game. This instantly becomes the best option we've got. And the thing is, because it's when your opponent's got 3 prizes or fewer, you can have 1 prize remaining and your opponent can have 3, and you're actually ahead in the game, and you still punish them with Roxanne. This is going to be played in almost every deck. It is going to decide many, 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 many thousands of games. It is going to be absolutely huge. And for me, as much as I understand how good Radiant Greninja and Palkia VSTAR are, there's no real competition. Roxanne, for me, is a very clear number 1. But I want to know what you think. I want to hear your list. Although do remember, right, if you're going to put a card down, you've got to put cards up to replace it. And if you're going to put cards up, you've got to put cards down. That's very important. And if you want to be friends, hey, maybe you just put a full top 20. That could be fun. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at GUTSY, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.